Hi, I'm going to talk about why I don't do what everybody says that you should do in those intro to cooking videos where they tell you to leave the root bit on the onion. There's several reasons that I think that that's unnecessary and a bad idea. First off, this is the dirtiest, nastiest part of the onion, and the part that is most likely to contain grit and contamination that could chip your knife or leave dirt and grit and nastiness on your cutting board. So I think cutting through it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I would rather cut that bit off, like before it ever gets to my cutting board. That's reason number one. This is much easier to deal with when you have the ends cut off. This now is nice and flat and uniform. And for me, the next step, if I was going to store it in the refrigerator for several days, then I would go ahead and peel it, but leave it otherwise intact. To do that, I just go like this. Now this onion is ready to be chopped, and this can hold in the fridge for 5 or 6 days, no issues. That comes in handy if you live in a place like I do in Central Virginia, where there's lots of bugs during the summertime, and you don't want to leave the onions sitting out on the counter. The other reason that I don't like to leave that bit on there, besides that it gets dirty, nasty crap on the cutting board and potentially damages the knife, is that now it's more difficult to peel the onion. You know, maybe not a ton more difficult, but a little bit more difficult to peel the onion if you leave that bit on there. And if you're doing, one onion, who cares? But, I've cut many thousands and thousands of pounds of onions in my life. I like to be efficient about these things. And most of the time, if I'm doing it in a professional setting, I'm not just cutting one onion. I'm cutting, 10 pounds of onions or 20 pounds of onions. So I would like to make it so that I don't waste motion, don't waste time. And if you leave this root bit on here, then you've got an extra step that now there's something that's not edible on my board. Whereas if I go like this and go ahead and cut this in half, now everything that's on the board is edible. So I don't have to, I've gotten rid of all the discard part. Whereas this, I'm introducing something that should have already been discarded into a step in the process where it shouldn't be. To me, that's inefficient. And, again, it's not going to matter at home, but if you're doing a lot of volume, it might really matter. So I'll just show you the efficiency. I guess first let's do the one with the root bit left on. And why do you leave the root on? I guess they tell you because it holds the onion together better. But as you can see, the onion still falls apart a little bit, Okay, now what do I do when I get down to this end? I have to make a decision about what's going to be trash and what isn't. And I end up wasting more of the onion than the alternative. So the alternative, I have the onion set ready right here. Now, I don't have that root bit holding it together, but I'm just careful not to cut all the way through to this side. And the onion still doesn't just like fall apart on the board like a piñata that's been busted, at a birthday party or something. It still holds together just fine. It still holds together just fine through the horizontal cut. it still holds together just fine all the way through this chopping. And now I have a piece that's very easy for me to deal with when I get down here to the end, that I can just go like that, go like that. It's 100% edible. I don't have to worry about any bit of it that I need to get rid of. Keeps my cutting board clean and fresh, and it makes my trash of cleaning the onions and getting ready to prepare them. I've gotten rid of everything that needs to be discarded before I get to the chopping part. Setting stuff up like that in discrete steps is something that you learn to do as a professional chef for food safety sanitation reasons and for efficiency of production. So those are the reasons why I always cut the root bit off. I don't leave it on there, and I don't teach people to do that either. I think that it is done as in good spirits, or like as like a way to teach people to do things. It's almost like a training wheels or a crutch, that, oh, this will be like a half step and then you'll figure out how to do it better later. Just skip the step. There's no reason to be introducing something that violates basic cooking procedures about trying to keep your board clean and trying to keep your space efficient. Why do something that violates that and goes against those philosophies about cooking? It doesn't make any sense. So anyways, that's the way I do it. Oh, and about that radial cut, I mean, a little bit of radial cut is fine, but the truth of the matter is that you mostly want to avoid having your knife be at angles other than straight up and down, because that again is something that can damage your knife edge. Coming in at an angle like this and hitting it hard like this can be bad on the edge, and it's also a safety issue. Generally, safer thing is going to be your claw and keeping your knife straight up and down. That's going to give you the most amount of control. If you have your angles at weird angles, then you're more likely to cut yourself. And if you're doing stuff one-handed with this hand out over here or out of the way or whatever, you don't have as much control even if you feel like you do. So the most efficient, best way to do stuff is going to be just straight up and down for these with a couple of slide cuts. A little bit of radial is okay, but the people on Reddit far overestimate how much that radial stuff matters, or what its benefits and effectiveness is. So anyways, that's it.